Hello, this is Matthew, and this is another Visions of Divine Media video where I'm going to take you into exploring how we've created eyeballs over the years. I've been working on animations for quite a few years, making different short animations, and I've gone through struggles with the eyeballs because my eyes and my characters they're usually oddly shaped, to say the least. A lot of our characters are very different looking, and so the eyeball needs to fit the eye socket of that character, and it's one thing to sculpt it, but then to try to animate that eyeball is a totally different story, and it can be a real headache. Just hoping that the audience didn't notice little mistakes that might have happened, or I'm fixing those mistakes all the time. And it would just be nice if I could just animate it properly the first time. So as soon as I was finished Fish Giver Part 1, I jumped into tutorials and learning about how to create a better eye. I made an eye on this tutorial that's great that I'm going to talk about, and then I customized that eye to come up with what I have here. And I just want to talk to you about this eye at the end, but first I'll show you a couple examples of what we went through in the past. Come on, isn't he cute? Isn't he just cute? But he's missing his lips, and he's missing his the inside of his ear. I couldn't find those textures, but I popped this open to show you how I rigged this character. His name is Kobi. He's from the animation Stillness, one of 3 characters that I had to rig and everything and put together. And he's not sculpted or anything. I try to be quick when I'm doing this work because I have a lot to do in like a year or less to be able to create this animation. So basically, his eye got weighted. What I mean is there's a weight painting, and if I was to jump down into grab the left eye, be able to see what I mean. There's some green in there, and that weight is what is deforming the eye when the bone moves. So I can get out of that weight paint mode and select this bone, and you can see that's how then both of these eyes were the same. They were weighted. But look at that when it gets a little close here, the iris is deforming. It's deforming, and I'm not able to get the weighting proper so that the eyeball doesn't move into the head, and the iris kind of overlapped over the sclera part of the eyeball. So not good for when you're trying to animate. You don't want to be limited in your animation because of your rig, and you don't want to be fixing technical problems with your rig when you're trying to animate. So that little bit of a struggle that I had made me want to fix this situation and have a better eye rig for the next animation, which wasn't this one, but this is jumping forward a couple animations. I'm still having problems with eyes. And I should have spent more time, I guess, researching and trying to figure it out. But I ended up with this kind of eyeball here that if I take the subdivision surface modifier off, I'm going to speed up my computer here a little. But basically, yeah, this bone is controlling this eye, and there's a copy to location for these iris bones. I can move them both, and when I'm animating, it's time, right? So a lot of times I'm using this master bone and then fixing it. But see, my iris is poking through. It's this, but I just couldn't get the iris to stick to this sclera part of the eye. But I wanted the eye to be like that. I wanted to follow the design, the original design of the character. I didn't want to have a round eyeball on this character. His face is oblong. His eyes were oblong. He has cool shaped looking eyes here. And a lot of characters that we work with are like that. And I just thought, no, I don't want to have round eyeballs on all my characters. It's just not going to work. So this needs to go. This needs to go well, you know. But basically, it wasn't going well. I could put restraints on it and say child of, parent of, and I just tried so many things, and then I still ended up reanimating a lot. Or I'd be ready to render, and I noticed, oh, the eyeball poked through. Or I had already rendered, and then I noticed that the eye had poked through the side of the sclera or something, right? And you just don't want to have that kind of struggle. So I had to jump in and fix it, and I'm going to show you what I came up with as an idea that didn't end up working, and I'm going to show you that next. So I threw together this little setup because the idea is that I can have a separate iris still, and I even put a cornea on this time, or a lens for the iris. And then this is the sclera, the white background here, and this is the eyeball. This is how I want it shaped, but I have the ability with the iris here, or with the lattice, sorry, to be able to grab these vertexes and that kind of thing, be able to move it. And you saw something funny going on there, but so I'll explain. Basically, I wanted to shrink wrap this iris to the eyeball. I thought that would solve all my problems, but it didn't. There's a copy to bone restraint, so that's why this bone's green. This bone has the weighting for the eye. So if I look at that, that's all the weight. So just like how I tried there with Fish Giver Part 1, to just animate the iris on the crazily shaped eye, have it nice and simple so that you don't mess around too much with this eye, and you do most of your animating with this separate object here, and really hoping that that would work. So I grabbed the bone, and then when I move it around, you can see though that it misshapes the iris, and I can't have that. I need the volume of the iris to stay the same. Nobody's going to understand that as being part of the animation. So you can't do that. So even as it goes over the curve here, let's say I wasn't going over this curve at least that far, but you don't want your animation to be restricted to just this area where it seems to look okay. And plus then the cornea lens part was like shrinking into, and you can see how that messed with the front of that object, so or those vertices. So I couldn't do the cornea lens idea either. So not a good idea. There's a hook too on here that I was trying to control the vertices by keeping their volume using this hook in different ways. I tried a couple of object constraints here, like maintain volume, and I tried to shrink wrap using a constraint instead, and but that didn't seem to work either. Like if I jump back in my bone here, still having issues where it deforms, and then it just like starts to snap too. So it's like overlapping data with both of those, that kind of modifier and then that constraint. So not working. So if I then turned off you'll go one step further and turn off the modifier and see what happens then, and even just turn off the hook, let's say, and see I had a mesh deformer there too, that wasn't working. Then turn on the restraint again. Did I have it on? So then let's see, restraint, maintain volume, maintain shrink wrap. But even though that's on, it's not really shrink wrapping to my eyeball, is it? So that doesn't help. Yes, I have a lens cornea. And then weird things happen. So I just think that idea doesn't work. But if you know better than me and you know a way to make this situation work, then I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I want to be able to have options when I'm rigging. So it'd be nice to hear from you if you can figure this out so that you can animate the iris separately while it's still sticking to the eye and not losing volume. You can see that after following this tutorial that I was working on, I got a much better eye rig. You got to step back and go relearn sometimes to save yourself some trouble. And I need to tell myself that more often. But this creating an advanced cartoon eye rig on CG Cookie it's been fantastic. I'm glad I watched that and followed it. I felt like it was a little bit complicated for what we're going to have time for in our schedule, and we want to focus more on animation and stuff, but it is important to focus on the rigging so that your animation looks better. So yeah, it is definitely worth checking that tutorial out. And it has a couple different meshes here, so maybe I would rather just have an eye mesh, but I can see the benefit here of having that cornea over top, and to be able to animate it all together, like it just looks pretty beautiful compared to what I was doing. And so when I move this around, you can see when I get that functionality, but you can see there's a little bit of a problem with the front of the mesh here, and that could be just how well I followed along in the part where he's trying to make the vertices that are on these mesh shapes fit with the cornea, and then the eye mesh being able to fit together better when you're adding the mesh deformer modifier that you can see here. That's a part of the tutorial, and I don't want to share too much about the tutorial, but basically, it's really cool how you can dilate the pupils and then how you can scale that iris up and stuff. And so, but then when I tried to play around with it a bit, what we're not trying to animate the eyeball like this for the animation, but we probably would want to like misshape the eyeball. And so I might not just, maybe I just don't add the lattice until after, or maybe I add the lattice, take it off, or there's probably a workaround for that. But right now, like if I was to move this hook that the vertexes are, and I try to make it work that way, you can see it pops out of the other. The mesh deformer didn't quite work, or the shrink wrapper didn't quite help. Whatever it is, like I could kind of foresee, because it's more complicated, having more work in the animation. So I want to avoid that. I want to stop working on technical stuff in the middle of animating. So I came up with this using those principles. The basics of that tutorial like really helped me. Thank you so much for that tutorial. So I got one eye mesh here though, instead of a cornea, and I think with the glimmer on for our animations and the way that I'm going to point the light at the eye, I think it'll be okay. You can't get a real close-up like this in the animation. I don't know why I would anyway, to not see the lens over top of the iris, but because of that glimmer and the lighting and everything, I think it's fine. You can see that I added a hook here. There was a hook in the other one, but I just made it like this because I want to just be more aware of the shape of the iris. Because I'm not using a mesh deformer, I can't control the shape of the iris. That's the difference. So I lose that, but I get one mesh. And then because of that, I found that it's easier to avoid breaking the mesh, but it's going kind of flat here. But I can adjust that by grabbing the hook and moving it out. Now it's more smooth around here. So I like that it's pretty user friendly. It could be more user friendly. I think that's what the future is going to hold for eye rigs. But yeah, I can still adjust the lattice, drop this down, change my pupil size and all that kind of fun stuff. And then I like that there's still empties that I can focus on the animation of the eye separately from the rig and get over these little challenges. So let me know what you think of this rig, how you might improve it even more, fix it even more. You know, what if I had an even crazier situation with the sclera of this eye that had to fit this eye socket that was like totally misshaped? Would I be able to do it with the lattice modifier having more vertices in there? Time would tell. Like I would have to approach each situation differently and try to use different solutions to fix it. Shrink wrap modifier, mesh deformer modifier, whatever constraints for bone constraints and different things, maybe waiting again. But I don't know, I kind of like this solution. I'm trying to save time on rigging so that I can animate more, but I love it so far. So yeah, let me know what you think. Please like this video if you really did like it, and you know, if you subscribe, you'll see more videos like this. We want to encourage you to keep doing your own thing, keep working on your own stuff, and hopefully these videos help you do that. God bless you, and may He richly reward you, and please follow us and check us out on visionsofdivine.com. Thank you very much.